friends, I'm Rich Larson and I'm the IRC Tire Guy. Today we're continuing our 5 essential extreme enduro skill breakdowns with skill number 4, the pivot turn. Once again, all these skills are connected, so the beginning of the slow wheelie and the beginning of the pivot turn go hand in hand. I recommend starting from skill number 1 and moving on from there. When starting a pivot turn, whether you're in an extreme situation in the mountains or on flat ground, the first step is always the same. I'm using my fork compression and rebound to assist in the beginning. I'm holding the front brake and compressing the forks, then slipping the clutch and releasing the front brake simultaneously with the rebound of the suspension. This is a lot about practicing and getting that timing right. All of these things have to mesh together and get that front tire up in the air as quickly as possible. At this point, you should be a little more comfortable with the balance point from all your slow wheelie practice from the previous episode. Now, it's time to learn the pivot turn. When learning the pivot turn, I recommend learning it to the left first. That way you have the safety of your right foot on the rear brake. If you're getting it up a little bit too high, you can always save it. If you're going right, you don't have the safety of the rear brake. Now, the pivot turn really isn't about leaning the bike from one direction to the other. Although you do lean the bike a little bit, it's more about pivoting around a stationary point. That stationary point is your planted foot on the ground. The less planted your foot is, the wider the pivot turn is going to become. When doing a tight pivot turn, the importance of getting your bike up into the air quickly is imperative. If you're not getting your bike up quick enough, you're going to be chasing your bike until it reaches the balance point. The bike has to be at its balance point when completing the pivot. Try practicing on an uphill slant. This cuts part of the wheelie out of the pivot turn. It's important to think of your foot as not planted, but ready to move to the point where the pivot begins. At first, you're going to have trouble getting the bike up to the balance point quickly, so your foot needs to move with the bike until it hits the balance point. Then the pivot begins. When you've planted your foot and the pivot turn begins, focus on using your clutch to keep the bike running, but also use the clutch to slow the bike down. Try to feather the rear brake as well. You don't want to rush. You want it to be a controlled turn. You shouldn't be muscling the bike. It's a lot about technique. If you're struggling, you're not quite doing it right. The bike's basically at its balance point, and it's just pivoting around your planted foot. This is a skill that I implement all the time when I'm riding extreme enduro. Learn it both ways. You never know when you're going to hit a switchback in the trail, and it's the beginning of that technique. Take your time and practice. And until next time, keep shredding.